Hello, welcome back to my haunted library. It's Regina. I hope you all had a wonderful Christmas. I have to say, I did not have the best Christmas, and I'll tell you why. Although I'm very grateful for what I do have, and I'll get to that in a minute. You know how most of the time, as you approach the Christmas holiday, whatever you celebrate, you usually get some time off. So you fill in the calendar, oh, I'm going to go to this party, I'm going to go see my mom on this day, I'm going to see my sister on this day, etc. Well, that all kind of fell apart because we did get two good nights in, or two good events. My husband and I went to a beautiful, we kind of started the season with this event that takes place at Pennsbury Manor, which is William Penn's colonial home that's a few miles from my house on the Delaware River. It's really lovely. It's not the original home. They've like rebuilt it as a replica of the original home, but it really gives you a great look into colonial architecture and colonial life. If you're into that kind of stuff like I am, I love that kind of history. And it's called Holly Nights, and it's all candlelit, and everyone's dressed up in colonial garb, although I did catch some people wearing their sneakers under their skirts. I don't blame them. I'm sure it was a long day. I think it takes place or two nights in a row, over two nights. But it was lovely. So we went out with friends. We had a nice dinner. We did that. Then we had my husband's Christmas, like holiday party for the guys he works with. And he always throws a party for all of his crew in New York. So, which is where he works. But this time we did it in Newark. It was this great old-fashioned Spanish restaurant, you know, the kind where they still have the waiters in, you know, little dinner jackets and linen tablecloths, like very old-fashioned, huge menus like this, and incredible, incredible food. So the wine was flowing. Everyone was eating all kinds of food. I had taken the train up there and met them, and I was feeling very festive. In fact, I had on this very outfit. I put this on again. I'm not going anywhere, but I thought I would dress up just to be a little festive. But, I was feeling really good, ready for holidays. I had my sprig of holly in my hat, the whole thing. And then the next day, or a couple days later, we had gotten tickets to see a play. So this was the next thing we were going to do. A friend of mine was in a musical in Wilmington, Delaware, which is about an hour, a little more than an hour's drive from where I live. So it was a little bit of a hike, but we had planned it, and it was the closing night of the show. So I got the tickets, got dinner reservation, we're ready to go. And my husband was like, I don't feel so good. And just on a whim, he's like, you know what, I should probably take one of those at-home COVID tests. I was like, oh, you don't have COVID. He's like, well, maybe I better take the test. He's like, I got a sore throat, I feel run down. I'm like, okay. Got the test, and we were floored that it came back positive for him. Negative for me. And it turned out I was the only one. I think there might have been one other person we haven't checked with yet, but I was the only one at the party who did not get COVID. So I don't know if it's the Rh negative alien blood, could be, but I still have not tested positive for it. He was in bed for days. He didn't get that. He was vaccinated, so he didn't get that sick, but just the worry about that and the isolation, we quarantined, I guess you could say, for about a week, and it was just a nightmare. And none of the stuff, we had our tree up, but we didn't even finish decorating the house. Everything was just kind of put on hold. All the plans we had made, the parties. I had planned a big New Year's Day party here, like I always do at my studio. That I canceled just because I want to keep everyone safe. So it just turned into one of those very frustrating Christmases. But you know what? It's okay, because we're alive and we're well, and not everyone is. And that's what I'm thinking about. So I'm reflecting on. And it was not without a present, because what we do is we always wait to the last minute and buy each other gifts. It's just kind of a thing we do. We'll both go out separately on Christmas Eve and buy gifts. And usually he gives me all kinds of amazing stuff, like perfume and beautiful clothes. Well, I have so many clothes. I have enough clothes for the rest of my life. So he's like, oh, I can't get your gifts. And I'm like, I don't care. It doesn't matter. But there is one thing I do want. There is a lady I met in town whose dog just had puppies a couple months ago, and I know the Shih Tzus are like a Shih Tzu mix maybe, and I want to see if there's any of those puppies still available. So I got myself another dog. She's adorable. Her name's Lucky. I didn't bring her with me today because she's very small. I've got her in like her doggy playpen, and Lily is just turned 12. So we've had Lily for a long time, and she's been an incredible dog. And I wanted to get a puppy, as she got into her, senior years. So Lucky's adorable. She's amazing and very healthy, and we're so happy to have her. And as we were quarantining, I was sleeping on the couch next to the puppy, and we really bonded. So here's just a video I'll show of her. This was this morning. I got up early to do my writing, and what I usually do when I have my morning coffee, before the caffeine kicks in, I'll watch some booktube videos. So here I am watching Cam Wolf's video on The Wheel of Time, which is really good. And you can see little Lucky playing around. And when I type, she'll start to like attack my fingers. And then I put her down and she'll start to cry. I'm like, okay, I got to work this out. But Lily is doing okay. She's adjusting. And I think she's starting to make progress. She was very afraid at first. We tried to, do the introduction and everything, but, she's just going to react how she's going to react. She's not aggressive, but she's a little more like afraid. But now she's staying at least in the same room with the puppy, and the puppy loves to chase her all around. It's so funny. But then she'll jump up on the chair, but she stays up there and she watches, and the tail's wagging. So I think she's going to be okay. She's going to have to be. Anyway, even though it was disappointing, it was lovely as well. So that's, I guess, the lesson. And a lot of people have it much worse. I mean, this has been a tough year. And I was talking to a friend of mine. We talked for like 2 hours on the phone and caught up yesterday. And, we did lose some people. I lost my aunt. I lost a lady I respected very much, a friend of mine's mother, who I knew and really admired. And that was really hard. But there were also babies born during this year of friends of ours. So, that's just life. So I'm grateful. And this year is ending on a positive note for me. And I went to the mailbox today and got a letter. So this is from C J Wright. I'm going to try to open this carefully. My friend from, I'm going to try to say this, Worcestershire, England. I know it's not Worcestershire or Worcester. Is it Worcester? I don't know. Correct me. Someone write it phonetically in the comments if you know. Worcester. Oh God, I'm butchering that horribly. I'm so sorry. Anyway, here we go. Oh, this is great. All right, so he sent me a nice long typed letter, which I'm not going to read aloud, but I did get a very cool Dracula postcard. That's awesome. I've never seen that before. Taken from an original by Ron Dunn. I have no idea this image, and I could barely read that, but it's like a very cool painting. And it looks like a card. So let's open this. Oh my God, speaking of cute dogs. I love that. This looks just like my friend's dog, George. Oh, it's so cute. To Regina, Batilda, and family, have a wonderful Christmas. Hope you all have a Merry Christmas from CJ Emma Wright. I'm going to put CJ's links below. He has a booktube channel. I don't know if he's updated it in a while, but he's written some amazing books. Very English, creepy, cozy kind of stories like that. If you like that type, which I do, I will link it below. He's really, really good. He put a story in Local Haunts. So on to some reading resolutions. Well, I have been reading a lot since this Christmas happened. At least I had books, I didn't have a TV. I had planned to watch the Wheel of Time series, but I have been watching the reviews, including Cam Wolf's, and the reviews I can't imagine that the series is any more entertaining than those reviews, but I do plan on watching it. And I also wanted to watch the new Witcher, Batilda, and I had planned to do that. I'll get there, it's no big deal. So what do you do when there's no TV? You read, which is a perfectly fine way to spend your time. So every year Goodreads has the how many books you read in the year. So I wasn't surprised that I got to 50 because that is my average. I know that it's a little more because I read a lot of embarrassing like self-help books, which I would never ever put on Goodreads because I wouldn't want people to know that I'm desperately looking for the answers to some of these things. So I'll just keep that a secret. But yeah, so 50 books. I'm fine with that. Friends of mine read 100 books, which is incredible. I mean, that's 2 books a week, let's say average, and I'm lucky if I can do a book a week. So I'm fine with that. So I've been reading cold-themed horror, which has been a lot of fun. I will have a review for that soon. I'll do like a overall review for what I read for that series. And speaking of series, one of my reading resolutions is to get back into some of my series, my Gothic Sensibility series. So I plan to read Anne Radcliffe coming up in January, one of the original Gothic writers. I have all of her works on my Kindle. I've just been lazy about it. I would like to get a nice leather-bound copy of her works, but I think I better start reading it first to see if I like it. So I'm going to do that. And then also my rock and roll horror series got a little forgotten about. Not forgotten, just, I just haven't read one in a while. Except I just did reread one for December, and that is called December by Phil Rickman. As you can see, it's a bit of a chunker, over 600 pages. I read this twice. Read it a couple years ago, but I wanted to do a review on it, and I kind of forgotten a lot of it. But anyway, before I get into it, let's just cue that intro. All right, so December. Phil Rickman, author of Curfew and Candle Night. I have not read either of those books. This is my first Phil Rickman book, and from what I have gathered in my very brief internet search about this author, a lot of his works are out of print. I don't know where I got this book. Maybe I was looking for rock stuff and found it. I'm not sure. But this came out in 1994. It takes place in the UK, in southern Wales, at a real place. It's called, I will not be able to pronounce it in Welsh, and I probably won't even be able to pronounce it in the British. Skirrid, Yigsclad. No, I'm not even going to try it. The Skirrid, maybe. The Skirrid in Worcestershire. Oh gosh, it's embarrassing. It's a real place. It's referred to as a holy mountain, the Skirrid. It's about an old 12th century abbey. I don't know if you can see it in the cover. I'll put it here too. The cover art is very literal to the story, including one of the towers that does collapse at one point in the story. And I feel like if you wanted to do a deep dive into this author's work, which I haven't decided yet if I want to, but I'm glad I read this again. There's a lot of material here. In fact, when I finished reading the book, I discovered that there's a playlist of songs based on the music that's described in this book. And I listened to it, and it's really good. So this is a deep well of this author's creativity, and it's very cool. So the book begins with a prologue that takes place on a very specific date, December 8th, 1980. Does that date ring a bell to anyone? I know it rings a bell for me because I know exactly where I was. Well, actually, the next morning when I woke up and my roommate, my college roommate in my college dorm room, was crying, and there was a John Lennon song on the radio. I think it was I think it was Imagine. I might have been imagining that, but I'm pretty sure that's what it was. And then I remember walking kind of like in a daze through the campus because I had a very early morning acting class at 8 o'clock through this part of the school, which was called Schaefer Court, and where all the kids hung out. And someone was playing it through the PA system, all these Beatles songs. And when I got to my acting class, everyone was really upset. This one girl I remember came like flying into the class, crying. And, it was like we all had to have like a moment and everything. So that whole event, that tragedy, has a lot of representation in this book. Not only as in that night when something horrible happens, but also one character kind of becomes like obsessed with John Lennon, or maybe he always was, and does like a John Lennon like review as part of his act. So basically, this is a story about a band, and they're called the Philosopher's Stone. It's like a progressive rock band that you would find like in like Yes, maybe not as big as Yes, or early Genesis, that kind of thing. So there are 4 members of this band, Philosopher's Stone. One is a woman named Moira Cairns, I think. She is kind of like a Sandy Denny from Fairport Convention type. That's how I imagined it. And when I listened to some of the music, it had that kind of feel. So the band is at this abbey and they're all psychic. All 4 of them are psychics. And they have different psychic gifts. And that's part of their shtick as a band. And they're at this abbey trying to conjure up this occult energy and infuse their music with it. So they do record an album that is called the Black Album. So they're all there trying to get this thing on. Things start to go crazy. And there's this weird thing with these, they have these candles, like black candles, but they're very greasy and made of some kind of material that is like really disgusting. So it kind of gets into this very occult stuff. So I won't say what happens, but there's a disaster happens that night, the night John Lennon, the exact moment John Lennon is killed. So it's highly symbolic. Things go crazy. They all end up like abandoning the project. So the rest of the story is their separate lives, where each of the members kind of go to try to escape this horrible event and escape their past, but they're still kind of brought back into it when the tapes of the session, which they thought were destroyed, turn up, and now their manager thinks it's a great idea if they return to the Abbey and finish the record. And, that's the very basic plot, but with a book that's almost 700 pages, it really gets into a lot more detail. The 4 main characters, but their inner lives and their relationships. I really liked the female characters. There's this really creepy scene where her mother actually is a witch. And when her mother dies, she goes into to see the mother's, dead body. And she's like sitting up in the bed with her eyes open and like pointing the dead mother. And she gives her a clue, which will, that clue is meaningful later on in the story. So it's like that kind of stuff. There's also a part that really creeped me out where one of the characters is psychic in that he has this horrible gift where he can see people who are, going to die and they don't know it. And it's described as he sees this like what's called a black bonnet, which just that word black bonnet together just was creepy. He sees a black bonnet on their heads, like around their heads, and he can tell, well, this one is going to die soon. She doesn't know it, but she has terminal cancer. And so he's tortured by this gift that he can see. So one of the characters named Simon gets a job as a vicar, a little country vicar, in a village next to where the Abbey is. And he keeps getting drawn back to it. And he meets a young woman who is in a wheelchair, and she's paralyzed from the waist down because she and a boyfriend, back when I guess they were in their teens, went up into the Abbey, which was abandoned, and went into one of the towers to make out, and it crumbled beneath them while they were in the midst of having sex, and he gets killed, but she lives, but she's, paralyzed. her character was very interesting. There's a lot going on with all these different lives and all these different characters. There are some really horrific scenes in this book, but I wouldn't say it's like your typical horror novel. So if you're going to read this looking for like big horror scenes, it's not there. This is much more of a, I wouldn't even say psychological novel as much as like literary fiction. So let me know in the comments below if you've read this book or anything by this author. I would love to hear your thoughts. So that's all I have for today. I hope you have a very happy new year, and I will see you soon in the Haunted Library. Bye!